Rental property. I mean, you know it, you love it, it's worked for you for years. But as you're watching what's happening legally and politically and culturally, a lot is changing. Rentals are not what they used to be. The laws are favoring tenants, they're not favoring landlords. And more restrictions and obligations are being imposed on those that own property. And so today I want to talk to you really about how to navigate the investment landscape as far as this is concerned. Because for many people, and for me, I was in real estate investment for about 20 years, and I did a lot of real estate, and real estate's been good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love it. I've made money with real estate. It's great. But, as time has gone on and as I've seen what's been happening culturally and politically, I'm seeing that really real estate is becoming a political football or a political weapon that's being used against landlords. And landlords have been demonized because they're seen as the powerful party in a contract between a tenant and a landlord. And the truth is that, yes, in some ways the landlord is powerful in that they own it, but ultimately the landlord doesn't have anything that they can do to the tenant in real terms, right? I've owned dozens and dozens of units, and I can tell you that when you get to a place where you've got tenants in any city that favors them, you have very little control about what happens to your property. So for example, let's say that a tenant stops paying rent, okay? If you go to a store, right, and you pick up something and you want to walk out the door, right, it's considered theft. You can't take something from a store that's not yours without paying for it. Or if you've got a gas bill that you haven't paid, right, they'll turn your gas off, right? There's certain things that just happen because you owe money. But as a tenant, there are so many laws and so many impediments for a landlord to be able to get their property back. And they risk having the property damaged in the process. And here's the ultimate kind of, to add insult to injury, right? The ultimate challenge is that tenants generally, okay, not always, but generally, tenants don't have as much, right? This is where that power imbalance, the perceived power imbalance is that tenants are poor and landlords are rich. And because of that mindset, and because people think this way, the laws are made to favor tenants. And so if a tenant doesn't pay, right, you take them to court. And then when you take them to court, what happens? You might get a judgment against them. But if they don't have any money, there's no way for you to collect, right? If that person doesn't have any money, they don't have any assets. If they're living paycheck to paycheck, you've gone through this whole process of eviction, of getting them out, of cleaning the place out, of pursuing them in court and paying legal fees. And you could be thousands, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 in legal fees by the time it's all done. And then you get nothing, because the most the court can do is to say, yes, we agree, this tenant owes you money. But then you turn to the tenant and say, pay me. And the tenant says, I don't have anything. So what are you going to do? Right? Ultimately, the tenants have the power, although they may not realize it, or the government doesn't express it in this way, or consumer groups don't express it in this way. Ultimately, the tenant has the power. Now, don't get me wrong. I think some landlords are horrible. I think some landlords take advantage of their tenants. I think they offer a poor service for the money. They take advantage of people that are in need. I'm not advocating that. But what I'm saying is, if you provide a fair property at a fair price, you make the repairs on time, you treat your tenant well, some tenants will still take advantage of you as a result. And that's not fair. But you know what? In the real estate game, fair doesn't matter, right? Money matters. Ultimately, that's the reason you invest, is to make more money and to try and create a better life for you and for your family. And so during a time like this, where you've got the pandemic going on, you've got different laws changing, for many investors, they're trying to figure out, is this the game that I want to be in? Do I want to be in real estate? And sad to say that many people are making the decision not to be in real estate anymore. I know for myself, there's properties that I've owned that I'm actually looking to sell now. In Melbourne, Victoria, where I'm from, the laws are becoming very punitive. They're very, very strict. In fact, they're probably the strictest in Australia now. They've brought in new laws. Like, for example, if you want to sell your property, right? So you want to sell a property that's tenanted, and you want to show the house to prospective buyers, you actually have to pay your tenant. You have to give the tenant a payment for every inspection that you do. And there's a calculation that goes into that, right? It's not a significant amount, at least not yet, right? I think it's a half a day's worth of rent or something like that. I can't remember what it is. But the point is not that. The point is, why should I pay in order to list my property? And they see it as an inconvenience thing for the tenant. I get it. But you know what? There's lots of inconvenience on both sides. And these were never the case, right? There's entry requirements that used to be, well, look, if there's a problem, you can go in. Now you have to give them a lot of notice. It's like a week's notice. There used to be things where pets, right? You couldn't have pets if the owner didn't allow it. Now, The owner has to justify why they won't allow a pet, right? There's so many things that have changed. And so you have to decide for yourself if this is a time when you want to be in rental real estate. And here is the real shame of this all. Although the government says that this is about helping tenants because tenants are vulnerable, ultimately it's going to hurt tenants. And the simple reason is that as soon as you make it so difficult and so disadvantageous for an owner to have a property or for a landlord to have a property, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to sell, which is going to mean less properties on the market, which increases prices, right? Because more people fighting for the same property, or they're going to raise their prices because why would I want to take all this hassle unless I get paid more for that risk and for that headache, right? Both of those things lead to higher prices for the vulnerable people that they claim to help. And this is the problem with short-term populism where the government just wants to get elected or wants to, win some sort of favor. And so therefore they go for something that is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. And so you have to remember, as a real estate owner at this point in time, from what I'm seeing is real estate is becoming political, and because it's becoming political, you're going to get caught in the crosshairs of that, and you're going to have to make some decisions about what you want to do moving forward. So have strategies for dealing with tenants. I've got other videos on this, on tenant strategy, on how to deal with them, how to have a good working relationship with your tenants, what to do when they don't pay. But ultimately, just think about it. The landscape is shifting. The landscape is shifting for owners of rental properties. And you have to decide if you want to be in this game moving forward. And the time to make these decisions and think about them is now. You don't want to get to a point where things are so tough and then you can't offload a property that you want to sell for a good price because other owners are doing the same thing. So this is a good time to think about it. It's a wake-up call. But the important thing to remember is it's all about making money. That's what an investment property is. So yes, we want to help people. Yes, we want to provide good quality housing. Yes, we want to treat people right. Don't get me wrong. Those things are important. But ultimately, the reason you own an investment property is so that you can create a better life for your family. And so if that's the case, then you have to look at the laws and the changes and all of the things that are happening that may impact your rental property over time. So I hope this has helped to give you a different perspective. Check out the other videos for some important ways to deal with tenants and how to manage some of these situations. See you next time.